So since many people won't listen to the white guys who tell them, maybe they'll listen to the black guy. And I'm going to tell Marvel what they did wrong and how they should have gone about introducing the legacy characters without alienating the old fans. Now, what you see here with Iron Man in the front, this is an image that didn't stick too long. He actually became, well, he didn't become, but he was replaced by a black female character named Riri Williams shortly after this whole all new, all different Marvel began. And the way he was gotten rid of and replaced was through a very awful story which villainized favorite characters, and also was very ham-fisted in the way it sort of removed Iron Man Tony Stark from the picture. He was put in a coma by Captain Marvel, who is a woman, yeah, but he was put in a coma by her, and what they had was a high school girl named Riri who was looking for a reason to push herself, really. That's really what it came down to. She was looking for somebody to oppress her, for somebody to give her a goal that she could never possibly beat. And the teacher gave her after having pressure put on her by the student, the teacher told her, well, you can never beat Tony Stark or, Iron Man. So that was her motivation. She became, at that point, okay, she's like, I'm someone who's going to become Iron Man because somebody had to tell me that I couldn't do it in order for me to have the proper motivation to be able to do it. And so that was her character. So already you have a problem with this replacement character, this character that you're going to use to replace Iron Man, who has his following. He's in the movies right now. He's at the height of his popularity. And this is how you want to take him out of the picture and replace him with a minority character. This is the problem. Characters are removed, favorite characters that are extremely popular right now, that have a long time following, are removed in the most clumsy way in stories that really leave a bad taste in people's mouths, and then they're replaced by minority characters who are not fully fleshed out, not very compelling, not interesting, and their motivations are completely unrelatable, and they're there, really, it's very transparent that they're there just to check off a minority, a checklist. They're there to fill a quota, all right? And they're there so that companies like Marvel can feel better about themselves. In the way it sort of swings back in the other direction is that not only are they trying to feel better about themselves by pushing minority characters, even if they're bad minority characters, but they take the attitude that, well, we could disregard the Caucasian male characters, just completely emasculate them, weaken them, take them out of the way, and it's okay simply because we are just essentially returning the favor, since they have, or at least their ancestors have disenfranchised us or have enslaved our ancestors or have done us wrong. That gives us the right to return, to do the same back to them, and that is called equality. Actually, no, you're just making another oppressed class. Now, I'm looking at things like I said, I'm a Christian guy, so I take my morality comes from the scriptures. Jesus Christ was telling these people at his time to love their enemies, to do good to them which spitefully use them. He said, bless them that curse you, do good. He said, bless them that curse you. Um, was it pray for them or do I have to read it again? I'm getting a little bit rusty on my Bible, my scriptures, but essentially it's not, you don't, it's not eye for an eye. Okay. It's not eye for an eye, because an eye for an eye will leave everybody blind. Now, back in the Old Testament days, they were doing things that way, but all of that was supposed to show these people that mercy was a better path than simply, trying to get even, trying to return the favor, or trying to return the oppression back upon their enemy. So that's where I get my morality from. So yeah, I have had grandparents and people who have experienced harsher racism than I have, but at the same time, I've been called N-word to my face before. So, but anyway, at the same time, the morality that I have adopted does not allow me, or does not, it does not give me license to return that sort of hatred, or return the same thing back to them again, even though I am guilty of firing back sometimes. But if I was to adhere completely to my morality, then the higher road for me would be to love those people who had treated me, who had mistreated me, or who had caused me pain or caused me suffering, or who had oppressed me. But that's pretty much gone out of the window these days. And now the way we deal with problems are to oppress the oppressors, rather than try to get past all of that and work with each other. Now, I got off on a little bit of a detour there, and I'm sorry about that. But back to the point with these characters again. So the way that they want to get rid of a character like Thor, which was really a sticking point for me, because I'm a fan of Thor, especially from the MCU, and the way but I was really excited. I thought that was a great idea for there to be a female Thor, but at the same time, there had already been female wielders of Mjolnir, and female characters like Thordis and Thor Girl. So this Thor was really nothing new, but the whole point of the character, and what really left a bad taste in my mouth, was that this was a feminist storyline that they were going to roll with. Now, you have a medium, comic books, where it's established, it has been known, though people deny it now, that at least 50%, at the very least, and I'm being generous, 50% of comic book readers are, no, it's not even 50%, it's more than 50%. I can't even go that low. The vast majority of comic book readers are male. It was typically a male-dominated hobby. This is what we do, just like romance novels are more of a female thing. So, to give some context, or give a good example of what happened here, is, let's say, female romance novels, the business of romance novels has suddenly been overtaken by this whole idea that there should be parity or equality or even not just the even amount. Now, since there have been a majority of female romance novel writers or authors, now we should swing it the other way and invite a bunch of males in, because we're going for equality, right? So now we're going to replace a lot of the females and put a majority of males in there, and the males are going to make stories that appeal to men, not really appeal to women, and they're going to have a distinctly male power message in them, and they will in these books will shame the reader, the female reader. They will actually shame them in the book, sort of meta wise, for not loving the book. The characters will actually speak to the two other characters in the story, but it's clear that it's going to the reader that if you don't love what we're giving you, you are a horrible person. And if anyone complains about what they're reading, then you all are simply misandrous, you hate man, and you're horrible people. So that's basically the reverse of that scenario is what happened with Marvel Comics and what's happening with other typically male dominated hobbies. Because these people, for some reason, have this idea that women are just like men. They're exactly the same. So therefore, the hobbies that men typically enjoy must be dominated by women in order for what they say to be true. And so far, comic sales are dropping. It's being proven to not be true. But rather than admit that they're wrong, these people have personally invested everything they have into their ideology, and so they shall continue to force these comics upon us until either the males have all been driven away, and then maybe they'll have that sort of parity. They have that that percentage, more even percentage of male and female readers then, because they've driven the male readers away, or they go completely bankrupt because they've driven even the few female readers that they had, they have also driven them away because the females didn't want to read the stuff that they were pushing either. So they're catering to an audience that is, one, minuscule, and two, isn't even there. Because a lot of the people who they are trying to appeal to with these comics such as feminists, aren't reading these comics. They're not interested in these superhero comics. So why are they pushing feminist characters and feminist stories in books that are aimed at mostly male, cisgender heterosexuals? Mostly. So before this whole all new, all different era of Marvel, there were characters like Storm, who is a black bisexual female, and she was the leader of the X-Men for a number of years, and the X-Men were Marvel's flagship title. The X-Men were what was carrying Marvel. The Avengers didn't hold a candle to the X-Men. And for the longest time, they had a black bisexual female as their leader. And after that, a white woman, Jean Grey even, in a leadership position. And yet, these people seem to have completely forgotten about that time. And nobody back then, as far as I know, was asking for a pat on the back for it. They just went about their business and they did it. And part of the reason why people are upset, like people are like me are upset, is because this is clearly what we're getting now. It's clearly it's not done out of love for comics. It's not done out of love for characters. It's not done out of love for the audience. This is strictly political. And the storytelling has gone by the wayside. I remember reading Silk, which is a female character in the Spider-Man world or Spider-Man universe. And Silk is a character where in her first book, she works at her job, right? And one of the first characters other than her that we see is one of her friends. And her friend's character, her whole character is the fact that she's lesbian. And they pretty much, she comes on the screen on the page and she says a few words to Cindy Moon, who is Silk and the main character, and shortly after we see her, the first time we see her when Silk returns home to her apartment, and her friend has another female over, and they begin to become intimate with each other, and it's placed in a way that the reader cannot possibly not see it. Now, why is that there? I don't recall ever reading a book with heterosexuals in it where the friend simply came on, said a few words, and the next time we saw them, they were getting intimate in the back with their heterosexual partner. And if it does happen, it's played for jokes. It's not, if it does happen, I'm sure it's played for jokes. But so why is this happening? So why is it that a person like me who cared nothing about that, had nothing against it, suddenly is feeling some kind of way because I feel like I'm being, I feel like I'm participating in something that is immoral. I'm not talking about the lesbian or the LGBT relationship. I'm talking when I'm talking about immoral, I'm talking about this method of putting this on the page simply for saying, look, we have a lesbian couple. That's exploitation. To me, what is that doing? That person is not even a character. And I had dropped that book too, like a while ago, due to Secret Wars. I never picked it up since, so I never had a chance to really see if that character even really developed into a full person or not, because they pretty much went away after that scene. So what was that? That was weird, and it felt wrong. And yet, the people who are desperate for representation, even to the point where they will accept bad representation, will not call Marvel on it, will not speak up, will not fight against it, because they're just happy that they feel validated. Well, I would rather have no representation than bad representation. Now, Sam Wilson, Captain America, not Steve Rogers is the white guy, Sam Wilson is the black guy. They treated Sam Wilson like him becoming Captain America was a promotion. So his original identity was Falcon. So his original idea wasn't good enough for them. His original identity wasn't good enough for them in their eyes. He had to take on the white man's identity in order to actually be worth something. And I find that highly offensive. Like, they couldn't promote him and make him stand out as the person that he was, as the Falcon. And now since people had wanted, and not only that, but when they replaced these characters with the minority legacy characters, they removed the original characters out the way, so people who still want to see those characters are calling for those characters, and they're angry and they're upset, and then they're being called misogynist, then they're being called racist, when no, they just want their original characters back. You didn't have to take them out in order to promote minority characters. And Sam Wilson is the perfect example of them feeling like they had to take away the original to promote a minority character when the minority character was already there. He was already the Falcon. And yet they had to give him a white man's identity and then call it a promotion. So who's the racist here? That's as racist as anything. Now he's finally going back to being the Falcon again, but after all of this, there's like a mark on his history now. This bad little period of time where he was in a position that he shouldn't have been in, and now he's going back. It feels like a demotion, and it should never feel like a demotion. He should have always been the Falcon. They could have promoted him as the Falcon. So they've done a complete disservice to that character. Same with Miles Morales. Miles Morales was in his old universe. He was fine as the Ultimate Spider-Man. He was fine over there. But then they wanted to bring him into the 616, the main timeline, in order for him to replace Peter Parker Spider-Man. Now, of course that's going to piss people off because Peter Parker has a lot of fans. He's one of the most popular characters in the world. They should have left Miles in his own universe, where he was. He was fine there. They didn't have to bring him into the main universe. And if they wanted to, sometimes they can do crossovers. They can just have events where he just pops in and then goes back to do his own thing. He doesn't need to be in a world where suddenly he has to take another person's place and then have resentment against him because he's taking somebody else's place. It doesn't matter what the color is of the person who he is replacing. Now, Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, if you ask me, that's one of the most smoothest and organic, what do you call them? I'll just call it a passing of the torch that they have. That one was done right, because when Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel, she was officially through with her identity as Miss Marvel. So Kamala Khan then took on that identity of Miss Marvel, because Captain Marvel, or the former Miss Marvel, had already moved up to being Captain Marvel. So she was still there. She wasn't taken out of the picture. She wasn't removed. She was still there. She was still at her full strength. She wasn't reduced at all. She wasn't emasculated like Thor was, so that a feminist character could be pushed in his place. And I was a huge fan of that female Thor. And then when I found out what was really going on, it sickened me. But Kamala Khan was a great transition. They did it right. And now she doesn't have any resentment for being Miss Marvel. Where the resentment comes against her now is that the writers and the people who are, well, this character has been adopted now by people who feel like this is going to be our mascot. She's going to be our mouthpiece for, they have a picture of her tearing in half a image of Donald Trump. And she's supposed to be representing, minorities or immigrants and things like that. Okay. You're going to alienate people now again by turning this character. You're taking this character that everybody could have loved, and now you're at least cutting out probably at least half of the people who would love her, because now you're taking political sides with this character, and when you attack their political side, you are attacking them personally. And now you've made this a divisive character when she should not have been a divisive character. She was a beautiful character, and people have co-opted her and turned her into a divisive character now. And all because these people are so wrapped up in their race, their sex, their gender, whatever gender they take, they're trans. They're so wrapped up in that they have no idea what makes a good character good. They have no idea what makes stories good. What makes a story good to these people is if a character is trans, or if they're lesbian, or if they're gay, and if they're all these things, they have to show it. And that's what makes them great. If I wanted to make an SJW story, I would start it like this. My character would be male to female, transgender, who hates Donald Trump and can't stop talking about it, hates And this would be a character of color as well. Hates white people. At least hates cisgender white people. Pretty much hates heterosexual people. And can't stop talking about that. And doesn't actually fight anybody but white heterosexual male villains. And that would be all it would take for me to make a great SJW character. And I tell you, this character would take off and people would love it. And that would be all I would need. I wouldn't need anything else. There wouldn't have to be anything else to this character. And that's the idea or the mentality of the people who are taking over the entertainment industries, who are taking these beloved franchises from our childhood and fixing them, I put that in quotation marks, to right the wrongs that they feel like they see in them. And not only that, but these people will terrorize anyone who disagrees with them. I've been raising my voice as a black person and they pretty much ignore me, so that just shows me how they feel about me. Once again, who's the racist one here? You're not listening to me. You're not listening to other black people who say they're not happy with this stuff. You don't listen to the women who say they're not happy with this stuff. You don't care about the properties that you have. They're nothing but a vehicle for you to validate yourself or to virtue signal to make people believe that you're better than you are because for some reason you have a twisted sense of morality. And and I could just go on and on and on. And I was about to, but I just realized that I've been talking a lot longer than I intended to. So I'm just going to end this here. And now I'll probably get back to making the videos that I really want to make on this channel. And that's talking about, hopefully, talking about the story that I want to write and create. And I'm a person who hasn't drawn in years, or even, and I'm not a very good writer, so this is going to be a challenge for me. But maybe if I document my progress through this, that'd be worth watching maybe. So anyway, thanks for watching and thanks for listening.